Good morning, friends. It's very early in the morning, like 8 something, and I'm sitting here with this matcha thing that's made out of mushrooms, and it's pretty good. And I was just thinking about all the travels that I've done in the last 5 years and how I'm very grateful for my experiences, and they were very, very good for the most part. But there's a difference between doing things with God and taking things for yourself. In other words, when I first traveled in 2019 to Peru, it felt different than when I traveled in 2020, because when I traveled in 2019, I was still traveling with God throughout the whole time I traveled to Peru in 2019, for those 2 weeks. It was the first time that I left the country by myself, and it was a really empowering experience. And I had gone to meet my friend whom I'd met online while learning Spanish. But throughout the whole time, I traveled with this unquestioning reliance on God and knowledge that I was protected. I guess maybe not so much that, but I was just in constant communication with God the entire time I was there. Even I packed clothes so that I could go to Mass on the Sundays, and I prayed to God for every single need that I had. There were instances in which I felt that God was so there for me in a way that's different from when you are trying to manifest something. It's like personal attention from God rather than just trying to wrest things from the hands of the universe by force. The first time I was there in 2019, I went for 2 weeks, and I spent several days in Lima, and then after that I went to Cusco because I wanted to see a Machu Picchu. Obviously, I didn't realize that I had showed you guys my cup earlier in it. I didn't say why, but I love the phrase that's on there, "Let the adventure begin," because this is something that I totally believe. Like, I believe in being brave and stepping out of your comfort zone and doing things that are a little bit scary. Anyway, I went to Cusco, and I knew my friend in Lima, so I had 2 friends in Lima actually. So I had those 2 friends I could hang out with. And then when I went to Cusco, I didn't know anyone, and I was really having to trust in God the whole time I was there. And this is one of the things that I believe is the best things about travel, is that when you are out of your comfort zone, out of all of the things that make you feel safe and comfortable, that's when you can do radical dependence on God. And that's what I tried to do during that trip. Not only was I there with no one I knew, and it was the first time that I had experienced that before, I had to rely on myself and obviously God, not only to get me everything that I needed throughout the day, but also contracting tours and stuff like that, and trusting that in my loneliness I would meet people with whom to converse. And I've always had the best of luck. It's always been such the best thing when I travel. I treasure every single conversation I have with people. It's just a beautiful thing how when you're traveling solo and other people are also traveling solo, you make these connections, and you just have to trust that the people that you need and the people that you're supposed to meet come into your path. And I've always experienced that. And this first trip was the first time I experienced that. Because it's not that I made so many connections with people there, but every single minute conversation feels like such a gift. And I did meet some people there while on tours and things like that. One of the things that felt most magical during that trip was when I went to, and I felt very protected during this, I went to my Machu Picchu tour, which I contracted through the hostel. Through the tour, I guess I was like on a tour bus, and we went through the Sacred Valley and stopped at various places. Pisac, I know, was one. Where else? Ollantaytambo was the other. And then they got us on a train, and everyone had different tickets. So when I was on the train, I wasn't with people that I knew from the tour, and the people on the tour for the most part didn't really talk to me because they were all traveling in groups. But there's some kind of comfort in like the familiarity of a familiar face nearby when you're traveling. Even if you don't talk to the person, there's kind of like, I see you, you see me, all right, we got this type of energy in those kind of interactions. Well, when I went on the train in Ollantaytambo, it was night, so I didn't get to see any of the beautiful scenery that I've since come to know because I've gone back to Peru. It was night. I arrived in Machu Picchu Pueblo at night. It was probably about like 10 p.m. Had to get tickets for the bus the next day, had to find my hostel and all this, and they sent somebody, like a guide, to help with this. Did the tour the next day. I had seen when I stayed at this hostel this couple that was staying together that was so sweet, and they had invited me to have breakfast with them, and then I was on the tour with them later. So the girl was from somewhere else, I can't remember where. She was from an Asian country, and the guy was Peruvian, and they had all their conversations in English, and I thought in my mind, God, I really want to experience. I'm sorry if the camera angle looks a little different. I had to go into my camera and erase old video because I ran out of space. Anyway, as I was saying, I saw this couple there, and I felt really blessed to have met them because they were so friendly. And in my heart, I thought, well, I really love to experience that. And I didn't really think that much more of it. It was sort of like a prayer in my heart, which saved up to later, I guess. I don't know why I'm mentioning this, because this wasn't what I was going to mention. Anyway, I went on the tour with them, and then at nighttime, I spent all day in Machu Picchu Pueblo, and it just felt so adventurous at this time because I did these things that I've never done before. I went to a restaurant where I wasn't gonna eat, but there was a guy outside like trying to get tourists to come in, and they were advertising pisco sour for, I don't remember how much money, and then he was trying to get me to buy the pisco sour, and I was like, no, it's too expensive. And then he's like, okay, I'll give it to you for this price, which obviously in Peru it's okay to haggle for things, but I wasn't trying to haggle for it. I was actually trying to just not drink the pisco sour. And then he invited me into the restaurant, and I sat down at a table outside, like by the door, and then had my pisco sour, and I was chatting with him for several minutes, probably like 10-15 minutes. I was chatting with the guy who had called me in, and it felt so good because I was still learning Spanish at the time. I wasn't as fluent as I am now, and some days I don't count myself so fluent. It depends on the day and how tired my mind is. And it was the first time that I conversed with someone in Spanish after I had spent like 3 years learning Spanish. So that felt like a gift from God as well, and I still fondly remember this person. As I said, I don't know if I'm weird for this, but every single person that I have a conversation with, I just treasure it in my heart so much. Anyway, I also had to find some way to charge my phone, so I didn't go to the restaurant for this. I went to the restaurant to eat. I went to a restaurant to eat, and then I had asked the person if I could charge my phone there, and they said yes. So I plugged in my phone, and I was eating. And as I was eating, since I was a single person, I guess, their kids were coming up and talking to me and asking me questions, and the little girl was pretending to be the waitress, and it was so cute, and I treasure that as well. Then finally, I had to kill like 6 hours in Machu Picchu Pueblo. And after that, I got on finally the train de regreso, to go back to Ollantaytambo. And it was supposed to arrive like at midnight or 1 a.m. or something like that. And when I went back, we got off the train, and there's, whenever the train stops and lets out, there's like a huge horde of people that leave the train. And everyone's kind of like pushing past each other, dragging their luggage. There's people with signs with people's names on it. There's people shouting for people that they're supposed to pick up. Well, I was looking for signs with my name on it, or someone looking for me, and no one ever showed up. I was pretty much stranded in Ollantaytambo and at midnight, and I didn't have a hotel there. I didn't know at the time, like, later I would spend many days in Ollantaytambo, and it's a small town and there's hostels, and I now have apps on my phone where I could look for something quickly. Booking.com I use a lot, and I use a lot. That's pretty much the main one. Anyway, at the time I didn't know what I was gonna do. It felt so foreign to be there. It felt dangerous. I felt kind of scared because I just didn't know what to do. My ride hadn't shown up, and I was supposed to go back to Cusco that night to stay the night in my hostel. Well, eventually I walked back and forth up the street where the train station is, waiting for my ride to appear, and freaking out inside and calling on God, like, please help me, Lord, please help me get out of this situation. And eventually I went into, there's a little parking lot next to the train station, and I was just trying to see if there was the van there or where I was supposed to get on, and I didn't see anything. And this taxi driver came up to me and was like, I have an extra seat if you need a ride. There's already a family going to Cusco, but we have an extra seat. And at first I was like, no, I'm waiting for someone, but then I looked around, I'm like, there's no one here. So I was like, okay, see. So I went with the taxi driver. I felt like that was God's way of protecting me. Like, God put this person in my path specifically, and that person like specifically found me and took me because I was being stubborn. I was like, I'm gonna find this freaking van. Sometimes when I've traveled, I felt like, as a child, my mom would always talk about like guardian angels, like a person that at the last second shows up and helps you with something. I feel like I'm gonna cry. So maybe it's true. I felt like that taxi driver was like a guardian angel. He didn't drive like an angel. he drove like a maniac, but when we got to Cusco in one piece, and it wasn't very expensive, like 30 soles or something, 30 soles. It was actually going to be 25, but then I asked him, do you have any change? And he said no. I'm like, keep it. I'm fine. Like, I'm so very grateful to be arriving at my hostel right now. Yeah, I guess that's the story I wanted to tell about the taxi driver. But every part of that trip felt magical because I was with God. And that's not to say there weren't moments where there were moments of loneliness. I think when you're a solo traveler, you experience moments of loneliness. I remember feeling lonely and homesick, and of course I have 2 kids, so my kids at the time were probably like 4 and 6, and I missed them as well. I remember feeling lonely. I went back to Lima, and I had wanted to meet up with my friend, but my friend wasn't available that day. I tried to walk from Miraflores to Barranco, which is, it looks like it's all one piece. Like if you go in Miraflores in Lima, El Malecón, if you walk along the Malecón, which is like a sidewalk next to the ocean, it goes a long way. It appears to go like all the way down the coast, right? Like you can get to Barranco that way, which is another neighborhood, like an artsy hippie type of neighborhood, which is next to Miraflores. You can get to Barranco that way. I've done it 2 times, but the first time I did it was this time I'm referring to right now. It's a long way. Also, the Malecón doesn't go all the way straight through. You have to take, the Malecón goes like a huge way, and then you have to, the road like turns. So you have to go all around. It's like a big detour that goes around a big, I don't know, there's a highway there, and the coastline kind of cuts off, so it has to go around. If you know Lima, you know the edges are like cliffs. So it's a sidewalk that goes along the cliffs, but then the cliffs cut off at a certain point and you have to go around. And it takes forever. It takes for freaking ever. I did that, and like on the way I felt so lonely, and probably I was crying a little as I was going along because I felt so lonely. And then when I got to Barranco, like I was like, there's nothing to do over here and I don't know anyone. Like, why did I even come here? It was already in the afternoon, starting to get dark, and I don't be walking the streets at night. Yeah, that's not a practice that I do because it seems kind of dangerous or just looking for trouble. Anyway, so I didn't have that much time. I could stay in Barranco and just went back to Miraflores, which was also, you know, a long way. I went into the McDonald's there's one right in Miraflores by the Parque Kennedy that is 2 stories. I went in there and I was reading Anne of Green Gables, one of them, I don't remember which one, feeling sad and homesick and crying. And I like going to McDonald's in Peru because they have ice, and I miss ice when I'm traveling. Ice, ice with Coke in it, so good. So there's moments like that, but those moments too are so beautiful because in those moments you realize that it's you and God in this life that we live. That's all it is. It's you and God. Yes, there's other people around and we live our lives rubbing up against other people, and it's challenging and it's beautiful, but at the end of the day, it's you and God. That's who it is, you and your creator, that's it. And solo travel has taught me reliance on God in that way too. Through the good moments, the beautiful people that he puts in my path, all of they're not even lasting friendships, but beautiful people he puts in my way. And those moments of loneliness in which I have to rely on only him to fill me up. I think that's all that I wanted to say in this video. That solo travel has the capacity to put you in a stronger relationship with God. And also that when you travel with God, instead of trying to control every single thing or manifesting, I wouldn't say that I manifested this trip because I wasn't trying to manifest anything. But in some ways it feels like manifesting is, you have a prayer, you have something that you want, and then you're trying to force it into happening. You force it into creation. When you're trying to force things into creation against God's will, it doesn't turn out as well as it would if you left everything in God's will, in his time, in the way he wants it done. And I feel that I've experienced both ways. Being completely stubborn and forcing my will through. The next time I went to Peru was that way. I forced my will through. And it wasn't nearly as beautiful as this first trip. And it was full of a lot more trouble than this trip too. I don't know how to wrap up this video. It seems heavy, but it's important. If you stuck around this long, thank you. Truly thank you for visiting my channel. If you've had any crazy travel experiences in which you felt the hand of God on you, please drop those comments down below. I love hearing that stuff. And if you are interested in travel, and mostly solo travel, this last summer I went to Peru with my kids for the first time, traveling with them out of the country, which I didn't take videos of because my kids don't want to be in YouTube videos. But I might talk about the experience. If you're interested in this kind of content, travel mostly with God, please stick around, subscribe, come back, and I'll see y'all next time in the next video. Bye.